Joe Coffey here for Premier Guitar. We are in Memphis checking out the Stax Museum. Quite a piece of history here. It's the Stax Museum standing on the spot where Stax Records used to be. A lot of great music was recorded here. We're going to go in, check things out, so come on, let's take a look. All right, well, hi, Tim. How are you doing?
Hey, good, Joe. How are you?
Good to see you. This is Tim Sampson. He's going to show us around here at the Stax Museum. Quite a historic place. I know our guitar reader audience in particular will be very interested in some of the guitars we're going to look at today. We're talking about guitars from Steve Cropper, Albert King.
Bob Staples.
Yeah. The history of soul guitar, pretty much you could say, begins right here, couldn't you?
Pretty much say this history of soul music starts, American soul music, especially Southern soul music, started right here on this corner. This is where Stax Records was located from 1960 until it went bankrupt in '76, and the building itself was torn down in 1989, so this is all new. As we've opened Stax Museum in 2003, next door we have the Stax Music Academy and the Soulsville Charter School for inner city kids. So it's kind of a big campus, kind of a big complex here where Stax was.
Let's begin with Isaac Hayes. Over here we have his Hammond. This was actually
Right.
Booker T's first, but this was his after a while.
Isaac first was a session musician playing for Otis Redding, artists like that, but he and David Porter, when they partnered together as songwriters, wrote more than 200 songs. Hold On, I'm Coming, Soul Man, When Something Is Wrong with My Baby. They're most famous for their songs they wrote for Sam and Dave, but they wrote a lot of other songs too. And they, that just kind of revolutionized, soul music as everybody knew it, because until then there was kind of, that smooth, Motown sound. And but when they did that, and it was just all that raw, gritty, kind of cool stuff. And Isaac and David together, kind of, and Booker T and the MGs, they sort of just created that.
Well, Tim, people who really know their guitar history know that you could say a lot of what we listen to today comes from Ike Turner's style, what he brought out. Talk about Ike Turner. This is his Tele, it looks like.
Right, yeah, it's his Fender. Yeah, a lot of people think Rocket 88 was the first rock and roll song ever recorded. So obviously, that's Ike Turner. This is Ike Turner's guitar. This area is called the Precursors to Stax. It's where we celebrate a lot of the earlier Sam Cooke, James Brown, all the people who kind of, Ike and Tina Turner, this is Tina's Stage Dress, people who came before Stax, who their sound sort of blended with the Memphis gospel sound to become what was known as Southern soul music, American soul music. But yeah, this is Ike's guitar. Ike Turner actually wrote Rocket 88 and cut the demo not far from here in Clarksdale, Mississippi, at a place called the Riverside Hotel, which is still open and in business today. It was built initially around the turn of the century as a hospital for African Americans, and then in the 40s became a hotel. But Bessie Smith died there after a car wreck on the highway. It's about an hour and 15 minutes outside Memphis, and but Ike lived there for a while and wrote and recorded the demo to Rocket 88. I don't know if he did it on that guitar, probably not, but still Ike's guitar.
You see some old photos and footage of him playing the Strat. I noticed there's a black and white here of Ike with the Strat.
Yeah,
but
that's from Club Paradise, which is a club that was just a few blocks from here, where every R&B act in the world came through Club Paradise, and they're trying to renovate it now and reopen it.
anytime you talk about Stax, you have to talk about Booker T and the MGs, and this is a replica of a guitar Steve Cropper had.
Yeah, it is. It's one that I think Gibson made this for him. It's a replica of the first guitar he owned when he was actually, at that time, probably in the Marquis, or even a high school group before that. But the Marquis then morphed into Booker T and the MGs, and they were Booker T and the MGs, they're the architects of Southern American soul music. I mean, it's just, Steve has been named the second greatest guitarist in the world by a lot of publications, next to Jimi Hendrix, and Steve's real supportive of what we do here and donated that guitar to us.
Well, Steve is phenomenal. We think about Steve playing Telecasters, but this is a great 175. You can see the black P90 on it and the trapeze bridge. Just a great piece of Gibson history right there as well.
The cool thing about Booker T and the MGs too, that I don't know if a lot of people know it and a lot of people don't realize it, is that they were at the time, in the early '60s in Memphis, here together at Stax. It was one of the only integrated businesses in the South, and especially in Memphis. Black and white people didn't work together. They couldn't go to the same restaurants, same hotels, and they hung out like they were all family. And that's a big part of their history.
All right, Tim, this is a really cool looking P bass here. Tell me about this.
Yeah, this is James Alexander's bass that was used to cut the song Soul Finger.
That's it.
That's the guitar.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean,
Everybody knows that bass line.
Oh yeah, one of the most famous bass lines, one of the most famous songs, tunes ever. James actually was one of two of the Bar-Kays who didn't die in the plane crash with Otis Redding. Ben Cawley survived the crash. James was on a commercial flight, and this actually is the saxophone that belonged to Phelan Jones of the Bar-Kays that was pulled out of the wreckage from the plane crash. But yeah, Soul Finger, right here. I want to say Estelle Axton may have mortgaged her home to get this equipment, and that's what she joined her brother Jim Stewart in Stax, S.T. Stewart, A.X. Axton. But yeah, this is the original stuff, and I can't even tell you the songs that were cut on this in the early days. You know, this is the Sam and Dave period. This is the Eddie Floyd period, the William Bell period. So, you know, Soul Man, Hold On, I'm Coming. We don't have all the records on it, but I'm sure that a good half that real early Stax music was cut on these, or taped on these machines. This is the old Altec when Stax was the Stax studio was originally a movie theater, and when they moved into the movie theater out of the little storefront out in Brunswick, Tennessee, to try to really open a recording studio, the only speaker they could afford was the one that was the movie theater speaker that played back the movie sound. So this is what they used in the very beginning. They couldn't afford anything else. So,
oh my gosh.
But this is a replica of it. They kept it around in Studio A, and I think until Stax went out of business as a good luck charm, because they were, they went from being that really poor, $300 a month rent to this, multi-million-dollar company, and this is always their good luck charm.
How about that? Tim, this is quite a nice Gibson here. It's an old 45. Tell me about it.
Yeah, this is a Gibson. Mac Rice had been a performer for a number of years, and he came back to Stax as a songwriter, and in 1971, Steve Cropper gave him this guitar, and he went on to write Respect Yourself for the Staple Singers and some other songs, and I'm fairly certain that this was the guitar that he would sit and strum and, come up with the basic song. So there's no telling what's been written on this guitar either, it's just.
Tim, a lot of people may be more familiar with Don Duck Dunn and Steve Cropper from the Blues Brothers movie,
Right,
back in the day.
Sure.
Even back in Jim Belushi when he did the Bumblebee thing on Saturday Night Live. I mean, these guys are familiar for a lot of other things too. Talk about some of their more significant soul hits.
Oh, Booker T and the MGs with Steve Cropper, Duck Dunn, originally Louis Steinberg and Al Jackson Jr. on drums. I mean, they were it. I mean, they were the instrumental band of the '60s. Green Onions was their big breakout single. Which Green Onions, by the way, was the very first actual LP cut at Stax. But here you've got Duck's bass and Steve Cropper's Fender, and again, there's just no telling what music was. These guitars were used to record music, to rehearse music. Some of the greatest music in American history. These guitars did it.
Of course, Steve Cropper is a great guitar player, and those hammer-on double-stop Tele licks are just fantastic. You know him when you hear him. But he's quite the songwriter, too. I mean, he helped write Dock of the Bay, right?
Yeah, Steve Cropper co-wrote Sitting on the Dock of the Bay with Otis Redding. He co-wrote In the Midnight Hour with Wilson Pickett, Knock on Wood with Eddie Floyd. And some of those songs were recorded over at the Lorraine Motel, which ironically is where Martin Luther King ended up being assassinated. It's now the National Civil Rights Museum. But when they needed to get out of Stax, that was one of the only places they could go and hang out together.